on the plane with Bob. That's where I left you, right? I was in flight. Okay, and now we've landed in Myrtle Beach, and we stayed at the hotel. Again, we stayed at the Lafayette. I think that was because Elizabeth owned it, but nobody ever said that. Anyway. There had been about 40 people on the plane, and down in Myrtle Beach, I suppose there were 60 or 70 people altogether. I mean, which shows you, I mean, people from all over the world, I mean, how the Baba population has changed, right? Okay, and so one of the first things we did is Baba called everybody come to the center, and he had a meeting at the lagoon cabin, right? And you can imagine, I mean, how big the lagoon cabin is. I mean, everybody fit in very comfortably around, and then Baba gave us, that big smile, and everybody's wonderful. I mean, we're all here after all. And he says, "Is everybody happy? Everybody happy?" Well, I mean, after all, what is it? Unnecessary question. But he's happy, obviously. Happy. Yeah. Everybody's, yes. Harold puts his hand up. Just this is Harold. He's an actor. He's always got the happy on stage. And he puts his hand up. What's the matter, brothers? Not happy? What's the matter, Harold says, "We want to stay on the center with you." Again, I was a little embarrassed, And, I mean, there were plenty of people, only a few were staying on the center. Maybe 15 or 16 people, that's all there was room for. And Baba looks at him, he turns to Kitty, and he says, Kitty was very energetic, he says, Kitty, "Why aren't they staying on the center?" Which is just the way Harold felt, you see. And Kitty went, "Oh, Baba, there's no room. Every bed is taken into place because the only place that's not full yet is the boathouse." Baba turns right around. "You want to stay in a boathouse?" Harold says, "Sure." So, did you ever see the boathouse? This is a picture of the boathouse, which I'll pass around. Now, I come from a place where, it's cold in the winter, and they have a boathouse to put the boats in, and keep them, and you can go in there and change your shoes, put on your ice skates, and go skating on the lake, right? But here, this is a couple of boards over the lake, right? With a couple of screens for mosquitoes or something or other, and there's 2 little benches. So this was where it was all settled. We were staying on the center in a boathouse. And after a few things with Baba and having dinner, right? It was time to disperse, and I went to my room. It's perfectly open. I mean, there is nothing there. On the way. And I got there. So, I didn't undress too much. And we hadn't been there very long, right? When people began bringing down things to me. Phyllis, I remember, brought her raincoat, and somebody else brought me a sweater for a pillow, and I don't know, a few things like that. I think Harold had the what do you call it, the suitcase for a headrest or something or other, and he was unconcerned. All right, he's going to sleep there. And okay, I said, it's all right. So we were only there maybe a half hour when I saw a flash of lightning. The next thing I hear, all this thunder rolling. And I thought, oh my God, here we are out over the lake in an electric storm. Right? And I said, I shouldn't be here, you know. And for consolation, I remember hearing somebody tell me, you know, when you're pregnant, you should take care of yourself. This is the first time I thought of that. But didn't pass inspection this morning. It got noisier and flashier, and then the rain came. There was nothing to keep the rain in the lake or any place. The water came up from underneath. There was no flooring, just some narrow boards. And there was a kind of a netting, and I said, oh, thank God, there's a netting there because there's alligators in this lake. So the alligators were underneath. The storm was rushing through, wet. We got soaked. I can't tell you. I never got so wet in my life. I mean, taking a shower is nothing. And then I thought, well, why should I be scared? Baba is, I was down here. Baba is right up there, up the hill. And where else would be a good place to be in a storm like this, right? And I really, all the fear disappeared. It just did. I didn't like being wet and sloppy. Yeah. And you know how it is when you come to a place. I mean, I brought all my stuff. I brought my, makeup and my curling iron. And washed out. Any ego you had, forget it. We just washed it right out of me. So anyway, the night did come through. I never did sleep or so forth, but I was relaxed by this time. The next morning, right, 6 o'clock, Baba comes. There's a little bridge right over here. You can see in the picture where the over the what's that called again? Not the inlet, that little space where the alligators breed. Anyway, and Baba comes. The little narrow bridge. Baba comes over. Like a little baby. He always looks like a little baby to me. He comes bouncing over the bridge, and and there after all, I was gonna get out my stuff, put on my makeup, fix my hair. I said, oh, it's hopeless. So I just ran out and ran up to him the way I was, a kind of a flapping fish. That's all I could think. But Baba treated me just as well as if I had, achieved my Western ideas of how to present myself. And he walked up the steps, then which goes to the upper level where the cabins are, right next to the kitchen. And he called everybody together. And he said, I had a terrible night. I'm in great misery this morning. You have no idea what I had to suffer last night. So I thought, well, I can't complain. And I didn't really feel like complaining at this point, right? There had been, incidentally, someone reported about, that was the night of the great storm on the Atlantic, and the Andrea Doria sank. Now you're getting too old to tell this story too, right? That was a big event at the time. It was a big ocean liner that sank off the coast, right? The storm was an enormous, frightening storm, and Baba said he had to work all night because I don't know what. So. He calls everyone around. Where he would have his conferences would be right outside the original kitchen toward the lagoon cabin. There's still a little space there, but they've kind of stoned the walk, so he couldn't really have a big meeting there. And he calls everybody together and tells us this, and then he said to everyone, how did you all sleep? Which was a common question, right? How did you sleep? How did you sleep? Oh, Baba, we didn't sleep at all. What was, and Baba, that feigned innocence. And why not, And of course, what came back to him was, Well, there's this terrible storm, and we knew Virginia was in this condition, and here she was sleeping down there, and it kept us awake all night. Now, again, I think that from what I gathered from other people, right, that when Baba wanted to do some kind of work, right, he could get some kind of concentration of consciousness. That is, he would take a whole group of people to the movies, right, and make them all concentrate on the film. And then he would simply tune in to that packet of concentration, for use. And it sort of seemed to me later that this was what he might have been doing that, because everybody was focused on this. And so then they at least all the women said, Baba, let her sleep in my bed. I'll sleep there. Everybody, which brought out another funny reaction, right? Because the beds were great premium. And Baba looked at me. He says, How did you manage that? Were you all right? That's what he said. Were you all right? And I said, yes, Baba, because I was. He says, good. But, he said, I don't want you to sleep there. I want you to take one of these offers, right? He said, now see, you can have any bed in the place. But nothing. And I did hear somebody say, who does she think she is? Wait a minute. The Virgin Mary and no room in the inn? Well, anyway, I got, what we did is I split a bed with Big Dimple. Not this way, but this way. I don't know. She took the top or the bottom, and I slept next to her. So that worked out all right? So now, some of the things that Baba did. Now you can read about these, so I'll skip many of them, right? One of the things, though, that was very powerful was one time he called us all into the barn, right? And he said he was going to forgive us all our sins. And it was quite an experience, right? And I had walked down to the barn, and as soon as I got near Baba, who was standing outside checking everybody out, right, he began to say to me, why did you walk? You should have ridden. And then he got on this campaign. I tell you, it turned into a prenatal clinic. That's the only way I can describe it. You should, and everything. And we went up to the barn, and we had to wash our feet. And there's that ritual again, get off your shoes. I'm glad you don't have that here. And you take off your shoes, wash your feet. And then he said, if you were in India, you'd have to wash your hands and your face too. I don't know whether the Indians are in worse condition than we are, or whether there's just more dirt on the road. I don't know what, but he made that point. Also, on one of the walks down to the barn, he stayed up. I mean, we all had to stay up on the road. And he went down through the briar and so forth to the lake there. And he stayed for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then he came back. He didn't want, and nobody could go, not Erich, not Adi. And he came back up, and when he came back, he said, I had work to do there, right? Because the alligators are holding up evolution. I don't know what that means, but I don't know what any of this means, as a matter of fact. But he did make that statement, which seemed. What other little things were that we got to do, right? Adele was washing Baba's clothes, and she gave me a pair of his pants to wash. Underpants. I think she wanted me to share the work, not she didn't want me to do the dirty work. I think she wanted to share it with me, because it was a privilege, right? She had been privileged to do that. And so I did. And the thing is, they weren't dirty. I couldn't figure it out. They weren't dirty. They didn't smell. And I have washed men's underpants. And they're what? Enough said on that one, right?
in a state of a little goofiness, right? Just, like this. And Phyllis and I used to go to the barn, and the floor of the barn was just chin height like this, right? And we stood there, right, with our chins resting on the floor, looking right through the door where Baba was interviewing people. Every time the door opened, we looked right in, and Baba would look at us because he was looking at the incoming people. And I tell you, after a couple of hours of that, we were really drunk. We were just we had to stop for a while because we couldn't figure out what we were doing. It was just wonderful just to stand and look at Baba's eyes every time that door opened. I can't see, as I said before, the good stuff I can't tell you. It's all external. Okay, some other things that happened, right? Baba would call people in the lagoon cabin every day and all the time. Sometimes he'd call them in many times a day. See, there weren't that many people. It's a disadvantage having so many people. Okay, and one day Harold had a captain's hat on, and Baba, he did this with others too, right? He would take the hat, grab the hat off, put it on his head in a very jaunty way, and then look at you like this, and then he'd give it back to you. I am the Lord of the universe. And he looked like the Lord of the universe in somebody else's hat. And then he would say, never lose this. Don't ask me if Harold lost it. Then these are little things I try to remember that, just pertain to me, because you can read all the big stuff in the books, right? So then he would call Harold and I in, right? And he would say to Harold, I love Virginia very much. He stopped. He wouldn't say what he thought Harold was saying. And I love her very much. There's this mischievous look on his face. Aren't you jealous? And he would do this until he would get Harold riled up. If he didn't do it the first time, he would do it again, Or if he needed, he'd do it 3 times. Harold would be standing there, and after a while you could see him, getting up. But Harold, he always the actor, right? Harold threw himself on the floor in front of Baba, like this. Baba! Take my life! Take my life! Blasted right out of the cabin. Take my life! Only make her happy. Notice he never did say whether he minded that Baba loved me more than him. But he got his way. And then Baba turned, he told him, get up. And but then he got very serious. It was a funny thing the way these little things with Harold happened. He would say, people will think he has been play acting, because he was always that. He says, but he is sincere. I who know everything know he is sincere. And the atmosphere could change, like from one of, great ridiculousness and hilarity to one of intense seriousness, and you could feel Baba's love. It was amazing. Then he turned to me and he said, I like to tease Harold. Well, now, this part is intensely personal, but as I take it, this is what you want. Yes. He called us in, right? He was on his way to California. Yes, California, San Francisco. And we had tickets to go with him. And so he called us in this day and said, will you do as I say? He always asked you to do that before he told you what you're going to do. And then he went, first he said, there were 2 things. First he said he was going to have this meeting in India, and he said to Harold, you must come, even if the heavens and earth become one. And if nobody else comes, you must come. Baba has a plan. I knew that he wasn't inviting me, just Harold. So Harold, he never did go. That was a problem. Okay. Then he says to me, "Are you happy?" At this point, he was telling Harold he would have him come to India, and the implication is if Baba invites you to India, I mean, life is solved, And I was happy. I said, "Oh yes, Baba," right? And what Baba did is he says, "I'm going to give Harold 10 minutes," and he kept very strict care of the time. With Erich was there at that time, he kept saying, "Look," he wanted every minute, like he was asking him, "Is this?" And as Baba sat there, he raised his hands up in the air like this. He put them, one was a little higher than the other, I'm not sure which, like that. And he had a look of such terrible suffering on his face. I just felt, he's Christ, he's Christ, he's suffering, he's Christ. And he kept watching the time when he finished. Right? And I kept thinking, oh God, he's Christ. And he's suffering for Harold right this minute, these 10 minutes of his life he's given. And I thought, oh, Baba, don't suffer for Harold. I'll suffer. This is my job. And I'm afraid he heard me. So he says to Harold, he had told me earlier not to come, not to be in California with him. It's not good for you. You can't go on the plane. And remember, those were propeller planes. And he said, and now he looked at Harold. He said, "You don't come either. You go back to New York right now." So that was that. Now he would call us, and this is. Am I making this too long? No. Call us in. This is very personal. Into the interview cabin several times a day, really, right? So these are some of the things he would say. Which day he would say them? He would say them over and over. I mean, you could feel so much love. I mean, it was you couldn't hardly keep your balance, right? And these are some of the things I'll say. My nazar is on you. Of course, I never heard that word before. I didn't know what was on me, but but it felt all right. Then he would say, "You're my child." What do I say to that? I don't know. This is my conversation with Baba. I say, I never really held a question and answer conversation. This is as close as I ever came to a conversation with Baba. And most of my conversation depends on my saying, "Yes, Baba." I might have said something else. Then he would say, see, when he would say these things, you would feel it, I mean, the externalization produced the internal thing. I love you very much. I mean, you just blew up. It was hard. You have touched my heart. I don't know the psychological implications of all this, but what he was doing, of course, was touching my heart by blaming me for something I really hadn't done. It was coming back in a boomerang fashion. Right? There must be no distance between us. There must be no secrets. Well, I don't know what you want to make of this, but you can imagine how spaced out I was. He was trying to get me somehow or other. And then he would get onto this prenatal care thing. I mean, the doctor said I wasn't pregnant. But Baba opened his own prenatal clinic. It's the only way I can explain it. He would call me in every day. How do you feel? Fine, Baba. What are you going to say? You know, I got a pain here. I mean, you know, forget. And then he said, oh, I need to take care of yourself. I love you very much. I mean, he's on overdue. And I then, you know, I just relaxed for a minute, and he kept it up like this. Do you feel tired? Oh, no. This is my conversation. Do you have vomiting? Oh, no, I didn't have anything. You know. Oh, no, nothing. Do you lift heavy objects? I don't want you to lift anything. Okay, Papa, okay. Did you climb any stairs today? I don't want you. It's a riot. I was not pregnant, according to doctors. So he established his own prenatal clinic. If you want to start a clinic, I mean, here's a path. Know anything about how to take care of a child, right? And I just did it my own way, you know, like how, if I were the child, how I would like it. and I think it wasn't the orthodox way. And so I just have come to think that maybe it was supposed to be unorthodox. And however it turned out is my fault, but Baba told me to do it. So what else can I tell you? And he would go on. This is a child of my own personal selection. I'm telling you, this began to be crazy. And remember, this is going on like 10 days, every day. Finally, he said, this is about 3 or 4 days from the end, he would say. Now, when this child is being born, I want you to say my name 7 times. From the heart. Well, yes, Bobby. I mean, I didn't know what I was promising. Then he would say, I want you to practice. Take my hands. And I had to hold his hands, right, like this, and look in his eyes, right? And then he would go, okay, from the heart. Baba, 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 Baba. And he put an almond in my mouth. And he would give me the most wonderful embrace. You know, not one of these LA hugs, but as if I were some sort of a fragile kind of being. Nobody ever treated me like that. It's just as if I would break or something, right? Well, what can I tell you? Every day, this was what life was like with Father in 1956. Was every day like this. Okay, so then he went to San Francisco. I came home. We were in Atlantic City. Harold wanted to work there, so we went to Atlantic City. He wants to go to Myrtle Beach, we go to Myrtle Beach. He wants to go to Atlantic City, we go to Atlantic City. So this was getting toward the end of September. And I suddenly said, I want to go home. And if you don't come, I'm going anyway. So he decided to come with me, right? And I had found a doctor in the meantime. His name was Godfrey, who had been doing nothing all his life but bringing babies here. And he said, well, with my experience, I think you're pregnant. So I said, oh, fine. We've got somebody who agrees with Bob. And so he takes a whole bunch of tests again. This is like 7.5 months. And he says, no, all the tests are negative. And crazy. And he said, I said, well, what am I going to do? You think it's possible? Yes. Well, he said, all right, I'll take the case. I said, oh, great. And then I said, you know, I'm teaching, and I'll be expected to be teaching in 6 weeks. And could you write a little note explaining that there was some confusion about this? And because if I go into class now, go into the dean now and say, you know, I'm having a baby in 6 weeks, you better get somebody. And they will say, why didn't you tell us sooner? And I said, could you just put a little note that there was, some uncertainty or something or other? Oh, no, he says. Oh, no, he says. No, the tests are not there. So I couldn't even get that from him. I was still left out alone with this crazy arrangement. All right. So when I'm in Atlantic City, I write a letter. I had gone to see him twice. This was in the 7th month. So I'm in Atlantic City, and I wrote a letter to him. But instead of addressing it to him, I addressed it to his nurse. And in the meantime, his nurse had quit and moved to California. And so he thought it was a personal letter, and he sent the letter to California to his nurse. So I came back on Friday, thinking I had an appointment that she had made, and call up, and he said, oh no, I sent that letter. And I said, oh, well, I think maybe I want to come for an appointment. He said, well, all right, come in Monday. Come in Monday. He said, very relaxed, like, okay, that's Friday night, right? And Sunday night, I took a walk in the park, and I couldn't get back. Things start blowing up. Or blowing down, I guess. And now what am I going to do? So I came up and I called Loretta, and she says, my God, call your doctor. So about 11 o'clock Sunday night, I called him up and I said, I think things are happening. And he's, well, doctors, go to the hospital. Well, I hate to go to the hospital. I said, yes. But besides, I had something else on my mind. What did I have on my mind? I had practiced. I was all set up to say Baba's name 7 times. I only saw this guy twice. I hadn't seen him months now and whatnot. And so I said, oh, well, doctor, this is 1956. I want to be awake. I said it real fast because I wouldn't have got it finished. I want to be awake. Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. How many children have you had? I said, none. Well, how many miscarriages have you had? I said, none. And how old are you? He's giving me this, to convince me of it. I said, well, I'm going to be 40. He said, no. It's a cesarean, I know. It'll be a cesarean. You just go to the hospital. We'll take care of everything. Oh, I said, but doctor, I can't do it. Now look, he says, you want me to drop this case? And he starts threatening me. And I know I didn't have anybody else to turn to. He was only doing me a favor. And it's 11 o'clock at night, and things are getting hotter and hotter. And I always beside myself, oh, Baba, what can I do? What can I do here? And suddenly I said, doctor, I've got to be awake. Oh, yes. He's trying to calm me down. He's probably dealt with a lot of hysterical women. And I said, I made a vow to God that I would say his name at the instant of birth. Dead silence on the other side. See, I shifted the ground on him, from the physiological and all the impossibility there. I shifted it onto another ground. And the guy, and he sort of, I could feel him thinking, well, this one is really nuts. So he said, and I could feel, I could sense the pacification in his voice. He was saying, "Oh, yes, 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 yes. Well, you just go, and we'll see what we can do. I'm sure we'll be able to arrange." Which was a total lie, you know. And I mean, but he was doing his job, and I was doing what I had been told to do. So what happened? I went to the hospital the next day. I don't want to hang around these hospitals. I wanted people poking around me. And so I didn't get there till maybe 12:30 noon, right? I mean, I hung out as long as I could, you know. It's better to suffer your own way than to suffer with them helping you. And so he comes, he's at the door of the hospital and yells at me, "Where have you been? Don't you know I've got office hours?" And so he says, "Come right upstairs." And the office, you know, they want you to fill out 2,000 forms, and I start answering the questions. And the one we get stuck on is, "What is your religion?" They won't admit you until you put down a religion.
Oh my gosh.
So I said, "You take care of my religion." And I went upstairs. I still don't know what religion I am. I mean, on that form. I said, so anyway, he takes a look. He says, "Oh, yeah, okay." He says, "I'll be back tonight, 7:30, 8 o'clock. I said, "Don't leave me." Don't leave me. And he says, "Look, you know, I'm sure it must be awful for these poor guys. I mean, dealing with women at this time. I wouldn't want to do it." And, but anyway, he left. And well, his office was 15 minutes away from the hospital. By the time he got to his office, there was a call from the hospital to get back to the hospital. And I was already in, what do you call that room? Delivery? Special deliveries? You know, and things were going so fast. They didn't have time to, you know, really, whatever you call that procedure. Okay, Adele, now is your name. Anything, whatever it was. Okay, anything at all, right? I was in charge, which isn't the way they do it. Now remember, the things have changed considerably, but back then, nobody had a baby like this. I mean, it just wasn't done at all. I mean, LeMay's had published the book, right? It was published, but nobody had read it, least of all nurses and doctors. Yeah, it had not been at all. And the nurses were running around, right? And the big deal they do, of course, is they strap you down, right? Get this leg down and put the hooks on it and put this hook. Don't interfere with what they're doing. And they did give me a hand inhalator, right? But when I went to use it, my hand was clean. I said, "Let me free, let me free," because I was a little nervous. But just when the doctor came in and I'm yelling, and I said, "Doctor, give me my hand." I think so he did. He let it go. And with that, right? And within a few minutes, the baby was born like that. They didn't have time to knock me out, so I was awake. And I could be with them. I don't know how it happened, but I only tell you the externals here, as I said before, how it went.
Did you
Huh?
say his name?
Yes.
7 times?
Yeah, I was holding his hand too, but it was the inhalator. So it was wild. And here I was with this baby, right? And with all this on my head from Baba, it was wild. It was a very wild experience. I don't know why I had all this experience, right? And so Baba sent me a cable, or sent us a cable. And here it is. We can pass it around. I don't know that he touched it. But I share the happiness and the suffering of my lovers. My love to Virginia, you, and the baby. And that touched me so much because I guess there's a great deal of happiness with a child coming into the world. but there's a great deal of suffering. And I must admit that as I looked at this helpless little thing, I mean, and you think of what all that will be gone through in life. I mean, I can't say I was saying, hurrah, hurrah. I mean, I wasn't in that, what's that ecstatic state? What do you call that? Euphoria. I didn't have that kind of euphoria. I mean, everything now was quiet and thoughtful. And Bob, and to put that in the cable was wonderful to me. I understood that. So that was, that's 56. No, am I still on?
15 minutes. Oh,
No, we can go. You want me to go faster? Okay. But that was a big thing in my life, and it's, as far as I know, nobody else has had this kind of experience with that.
Well, Virginia seems like we're like the blueprint for what is just commonplace now, and Father God set it up.
I can't say, I can't say. I know Ivy tried to make that out. In fact, she decided that and wrote it up in her book. Plus a few other things that didn't happen. But what's the name of that book? How a Master Works. That's right. So, you could ask. I mean, Baba never said that to me. I don't know, right? And I mean, he could have picked somebody younger and more typical, I don't know.
Well, nowadays everybody's having their babies in their 30s and 40s, and
Well, this is new too.
Yeah.
This is very new, and it's very dangerous. I mean, from the viewpoint of Down syndrome and all this kind of stuff, it's considered dangerous, right? Because there are, I myself know a number of mad women who are about 38 years old who can't catch a guy, and they're really desperate. I mean, they want to have a baby, and they want to get. So I don't know. I leave all this, but I let Baba have it, right? Okay. So. Now, in 1958, right, he sent a preliminary, he came to the United States again, and he sent a preliminary message, which I didn't bring, it looks like, yeah, and emphasizing, right, that this meeting, well, I didn't bring the exact words, but we must obey. We must agree to obey him very carefully, and that this was in the midst of his seclusion, and that nobody was to go to the airport in India. Nobody was to meet him at the airport in New York or down here. He was coming in seclusion, doing us a special favor, right? So he came down. And although some people I heard hid upstairs in the balcony and peeked at him, and as he went through, he looked directly up at their disobedience. But you have to do these things. Okay. He came to the lagoon cabin immediately, and we came from the airport on buses. He didn't come this time in the airplane with us. This was a seclusion period. We came in buses, right? And it was a dusty, dirty trip from Wilmington. And now I had this child who was rolling up and down the aisles, collecting all the possible amount of dirt and filthy. And I'm bringing him to Baba after all this rigmarole, and I'm going to present him. The bus stops at the lagoon door. Everybody has to go right from the bus into the lagoon cabin, and no matter what you look like. So we did. And love and obedience were the two themes that were stressed here. And then Baba said, relax, I have come down to your level. It didn't seem as if he were on our level at all. He seemed very different to me. I mean, in 56, I felt like he was, somebody I knew, I had lived with or something or other. Right? Now, he seemed much more remote. And he seemed to me, and then in 56, I didn't see his suffering at all. In 58, I saw his suffering and his suffering and his suffering. He said he was coming in his seclusion, and it would be a time for us to share in his suffering. So he would do little things that would keep us from falling apart altogether. For instance, he would say, I will be in the barn at 9 o'clock. Everyone is to be there. Everyone would be there at 9 o'clock, right? And he would come sauntering, and not sauntering, because he was being carried. He had his other accident. He had the hip. He couldn't walk. He was carried. You'll see pictures of him being carried around the center. He would come in. First thing he'd get up. What time is it? Well, by now it was 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock, any old time. And they'd give him the time, and he'd say, it is 9 o'clock. I see I have forgotten this picture, right? No, this comes in, okay. He said, I am going to call people into the lagoon as I did in 56. I'm going to call them for special reasons. And no one should feel that I am not calling him and someone else more often, even though that will happen. It may be that the one I love the most, I will not call at all. But this, of course, did not penetrate. And outside the lagoon camp, he's calling her in. He has called her in yesterday. He hasn't called me in since I've been here. And there was a lot of dissension of this kind going on, right? But Baba said, you are interrupting my work. Called again. He said, you're interrupting my work, calling people for work, right? And but there was this kind of rumbling going on. And he said, what I came for is to give you my love. This is Sava's. Definition of Savas is the intimate give and take of love. Nothing to say, no discourses, although he gave plenty. And it is just being in the presence, right? Just being with the one you love. That's all there is to it, right? And Baba loves everybody the same. He made quite a point of that, right? Well, Baba, don't you love so-and-so more than this and this? That was what was coming. There was all these little petty... Baba said, I am at equal distance from each one. No one is closer, no one is farther away. Or if you came to me through someone else, it doesn't matter. You are still exactly as close as anyone else, including the one who told you about me. Each one is, I have personal, intimate connection with each one. He made such a point of that, right? Then again, he had the forgiveness of sins. That was very intense in the barn. As we sat in the barn, he didn't close the windows, but it seemed as though he had closed the windows. And he turned out the lights, and we had to sit there in silence. And he said, you must keep awake. You must keep awake. And it was impossible to keep awake. You had to pinch yourself and do everything. You must keep awake. Right? And I thought, he just gave us forgiveness of sins 2 years ago, and now he's got to give us another one. He said, in 1956, he said, all your sins are forgiven from the beginning. But we've been working so hard in 2 years, he had to repeat. There are other things here, but I'll rush out. Now let's see. Love is the solution, right? One thing, this is one place where he said, I am the Father and the Mother God. This is the first avataric incarnation in which I have taken the role of the Mother God. I am both the Father and the Mother. And there are several writings on that, but it's important to note that. Right? We went to, and he had a birthday cake party down here, birthday party with a cake. And it was a children's party. And I had this child now who was almost 2 years old, and I forgot to bring the picture. they're sitting at the table, and then the children coming to Baba, right? But the interesting note about this is that as we held Ruff for Baba, right? Baba took his two hands. Ruff is my son, Raphael. Took his two hands, and he held them, and he caressed them, and he looked at him, and he kept on holding his hands. And of course, he needs his hands. He plays music. He's a musician, and he needs this. And it has become, I don't know, they did one album, Beyond Love, in which we tried to take that off the film and put the photograph from the film on the cover. But it was so blurry looking, so we asked Greg Rosen, who's a good friend and an artist, and he has drawn, right, that, just a pen and ink drawing, right, of that thing, of Baba holding his hands like this. So I think now, that I didn't know then, but I think now as I look at it, that seems to me, I can pretty much say there's a pattern going on there. One other thing we did, humanly, right? We made Baba a coat. Everybody sewed on it. It didn't come out badly because we had some professional seamstresses who kind of went over it after. Each one sewed a pocket or an arm or some buttons or something or other. But the women sewed a coat and made it for Baba, right? And then Baba invited us all over to his house, right? He said that Myrtle had sent gifts for the women. So we went over to his house, gave him the jacket we had sewn, right? It was pink. But it wasn't a pale pink. It was a beautiful, and what'd you say you bought it in? Where'd you buy the material?
We got it.
Best?
Eric gave us a swatch.
Yeah.
We went up to in New York.
Yeah.
Best in
Best in New York, which is a good place. Okay, and Baba seemed pleased with it. But then he brought us into his house, and I don't think I had been in a house with Baba before. Like, you had either been outside or been in a big hall. Now, when you got in the house with him, you couldn't breathe because it was too confined. Like, it was like, I mean, the vibrations were so powerful, you just could hardly, this is Baba's house in Myrtle Beach. You could hardly stand it, right? But he got us, there was no conversation. He just went in and he brought us into his bedroom, and spread out all over the bed, he had these little gifts, right? And these were the gifts that Myrtle had sent with him. And so Baba looked at us and he said, you know, I who know everything, right? Myrtle told me what, for whom each one of these little things was for. How'd that sentence come in? Anyway, and he says, and I who know everything now have forgotten. So of course we women said, just like a man, you know. And he would look at you, and this is what he pointed me out to be. So I got this scarf from there. No, there's some here, thanks. So, what else can I tell you that might be? Oh, yes, we'll do the artifacts. I, as you notice, am not so hot with this hip. It bothers me, and I tried to, you know, get help. You know, you wear shoes that aren't going to hurt, make it hurt as much, and all this kind of thing. And I was wearing shoes that were a little better on me, and I knew he had the accident. So what could I do with Baba? What could I bring for him? Now, like later times, he would say, don't bring anything. You're not allowed to give gifts. But I didn't know that this would, you know, establish impressions or something or other. It didn't occur to me at that time. And so I got a pair of sandals that were helping me. And I brought these down. And when I was in the cabin with Baba, I brought them in. And Eric says, she brought you sandals because, you know, you're having trouble walking and so forth. Baba looks at me, I'm holding like this, and he says, put it on. and put it on him. Puts his foot out. His right foot. Puts it on. Well, and here again is my the veil of ignorance that enabled me to get away with so much. I had never heard that you shouldn't touch the master's feet. That is a very great thing. And that nobody was allowed to touch his feet. He sticks his foot out, so I put it on. And he looks at it and he says, "It is not what I wear, but," he says, "you are so blessed to have touched my foot." Now that I look back, it could have been a subconscious plan, but I didn't know anything. I swear I did not know. "You are very blessed to have touched my foot. Take it off, take it home, and keep it." He said, "Some people might even make an altar and put this up because it had been on my foot." Well, the dancers were there. They put on skits for Baba, and Baba loved them. He would have been so happy last night to be here. I tell you, that would have been the highlight of his visit into the West. He enjoyed that kind of thing so much. I just give you one little example of that. The men had what they called the alligator club, right? And they did this kind of stuff you were doing last night, right? And among them, right, was Harry Kenmore, whom you've seen in the film, right, who was blind, and Harold. Now, they're both actors, right? The two of them were actors. So they got this little thing. Just take a few seconds together. And it went something like this, you know. Harry is supposed to be a professor of drama, and he has this pupil who is Harold, right? And Harry has his voice and the presence. I mean, watch out, here I am, you know. And so he's going to teach this fellow how to be an actor. And Harold comes in like a little, you know, neophyte, scared guy. And so he's telling him, he's doing this. They paraphrase. It's not accurate, I know. A scene from Julius Caesar, right, where Anthony. This is what. Come not to not market. Come not to bury. Come not to praise Caesar, but to bury him. That's not quite right, but anyway, it's like that. Anyway, I've come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. Thank you. I got it now. Okay, but they interpret it right. You know, they didn't interpret it quite that way. They put it in a different way. You know, that afterwards, I mean, you get the uproar of the crowd and what. You know, you've caused, changed the whole thing. What are you doing? I mean, you ruined the whole thing. That the fact we've got him killed now, and you resurrected him. Okay, so Harry goes. He's teaching Harold. He's teaching Harold to. He says, "Now you take a deep breath." And when Harry took a deep breath, I mean, you know, the mountains were shaking. And you take a deep breath, right? And then you say this, you know. "Oh, what have you done here?" You know, and so Harold says, "Okay." He comes out, and "I'll take a deep breath." Harry says, and okay, start again now. You go ahead and do this, right? Take your deep breath. And say, you know, "What have you done here?" And Harold goes, "Mark Antony, what have you done?" And I thought Baba would crack up. He was really rolling in the aisle. And this is the kind of thing, I'll give you just an example of the kind of thing they were doing, right? And Baba was so happy. He says, "The only thing I will miss in my next incarnation is these skits that you are doing now." He did all the love, all the problems, all the coats we sold, all the things. This makes him very, very happy. He loved to be made happy. So, let me see. I like to say, well, this is a picture that's in the bookstore of Harold reciting to Baba, right, the light of Asia scene, right, where Buddha goes out into the world and sees the suffering in the world, right, and how he resolves that he will try to eliminate it. And Baba sat and listened to it very quietly. No one was allowed to speak. And Baba was working. And when he finished, he said, silence. I want silence. And then he said, this tape came from heaven. And it was quite intense, right? It was also, I forgot to put this down, it's also during this period we went to some kind of gardens, Myrtle Beach. Brook Green Gardens, right? And another little incident. And as Baba walked through and we ran, he stopped under a small tree and he sat down on the grass. And he sat there and sat there. And after a few minutes he said, this reminds me of when I was Buddha, sat under the tree. And the old woman gave me the drink. And there was always somebody writing what they're down and everything. Somebody said to him, Baba, what was her name? And Baba looked at him and he said, oh, it was so long ago, I forgot. What was one more thing here about when we went to the Wilmington airport where he was going on to Australia this time. And this was a powerful time. He sat there in the airport again. This is the second airport scene we had. And suddenly he got up, walked across the airport. Right? Remember, this is 1958. And as we watched him, right, so on that side of the building, there were 4 signs above 4 doors. One said, white gentlemen. And the next one said, colored men. The next one said, white ladies. And the fourth one said, colored women. It was powerful. I thought, my God, I can't go. I don't know. It's such a selection. I don't know which one to take. But Baba knew he went straight into colored men. And everybody stood there. And all Monday looked. It was a powerful moment. The South was in a terrible state at that time. Right? Erich, I understand, says he will never come back to America. At that time, he was sent around to do different things for Baba. And he was always told to go to the back door. But whatever that means, you want to interpret that? Okay, too. I mean, it seems very significant to me, along with the Marian Anderson kind of thing. All right, next thing, Baba is sitting in the airport, like that, and he's sitting, and everybody around him like this, and he would go, means, you come over. You know, and everybody's just keep alert. And so finally, I thought, he's going to skip me. So finally he called me. Stand behind me. And he was up a little bit. So when I stood behind him, here was Baba and his head and shoulders. My head was like on this right shoulder, like this. So that what he called in so many of his discourses, your angle of vision. Just change your angle of vision. You see that. What's this called in astronomy? The parallax or something like that. Just change your view. And everything has changed. Everything is you limited to your view. And I had my head right, looking the way he did. And I saw, as he called people in front of him, right? Not the way I was when I was sitting out there and he called me, and I was thrilled and delighted. But I saw from his point of view what it was like, right? And people would come up and, oh, look at this, Baba, and this problem. And it all seemed like nothing. What these people were doing was nothing. Because now I was looking with Baba's eyes. And I remember especially someone brought a Polaroid camera, which is just brand new off the market, somebody had a lot of money, and was here in front of and Bubba, and look at this, and you take this, and I do this, and I'm looking at it with Bubba, and I see it's nothing. The whole universe can be wiped away. It's nothing but toys and toys. There's nothing to it at all. And Bubba turned and looked at me. And this is the way. All the things that we're doing with him, it's all nothing. No matter what. And it's every little thing so significant to us. You 62. Wrong. Oh, maybe I lost it. No, I didn't. You want me to hit one or two things from 62 and skip the rest? Is that what you want? I'll see if I can select a couple of points. What's it? Yeah, 62. 62. Well, you want me to tell you about my personal experience in 62? Yes. And so you can read about this more, right? Okay. That was horrible. Okay. 62. Baba said we could come to India. We had to pay for our own trips. If you borrowed money, you had to be sure to pay it back, right? It couldn't be somebody else's sent. You had to be fully responsible, especially financially, right? He says, this is the darshan for my lovers only. And you had to be cleared to go. No one should hope for any individual attention, spiritual or otherwise. Come only to enjoy his company. That's the true meaning of sadhus. Don't expect him to talk to you or have an interview with you or anything of the kind. Don't ask him any questions. If you can obey these conditions, pay your way, and don't lose your job, you can come. Okay, there were 144 Westerners who went. Now, I don't know what the count is out of Australia, but they were considered Westerners. But it was high. 30, maybe a little over 100 from the West here. Right? All right, and not just America. Carrie went from Israel, people from France, England, of course, right? Who just went from Italy. Okay, but mostly Americans who went. The opposition to go was enormous. For everybody who tried to go, it was enormous. I don't know what your personal opinion, to talk to anyone, it was impossible. Right? First of all, Baba had the idea about you can't lose your job. Okay? Well, I was teaching, and if I don't appear, it's not good. Okay? I had this child, Baba told me, take care of this child, take care of this child, take care of this child. I was taking care of him so much. Who was I going to leave him with? And besides, he wouldn't stay with anybody. Once in his life, he had a babysitter. He crawled under the piano, faced the wall, and wouldn't come out until I got back. And I was going to go off now to India. The Cuban crisis. Does anybody remember that? Yes. Yeah. Well, the idea there was that Castro had missiles pointed at the U.S., and Kennedy said, if you don't get those off in 48 hours, I will drop a bomb. 48 hours? Also, the same time exactly, the Chinese invaded India. An Indian army was called up. People who came from Australia would have come on Indian planes, had to come by boat. They didn't get there till the last day because there were no civilian planes in use. They all went into the army, and India was mobilized. Okay, this is the time you're supposed to go. I couldn't go to the very last minute. There were groups organized, right? But they all went early. And I would have to go alone to India. And I called up the Indian, whatever it is in New York, And I said, but how can I go there by myself? I don't know the language, right? And he thought he was putting me at peace, and this is what he said to me. Oh, English, she's the language. And so that was such a help, you know. All right, but most important of all, right, is Harold said, you are not going. You can figure out his reasons. Any one of the given ones, plus a few others. He didn't want me to leave. And he would not go. This distressed me no end. So he began to work on me, and he told me, you are selfish. If you really loved Baba, what you would do is what Baba always tells you to do. Stay and do your duty. Don't run off and don't abandon. This child Baba told you to watch, and now you're going to leave it and you're going off. That's selfishness. I think you might hear echoes of this in places where you women have been. But anyway. But anyway, it does, I mean, I always like to put thoughts in my mind and look at them and not say, oh, you're crazy right away, and even if you are. But I thought, and I thought, maybe it is selfishness. It can be selfishness, can it not? It can be. That I would be a greater, what shall I say, spiritual soul? I don't know what those words are. But if I were to deny myself, you know, do my duty, stay here as somebody else sees my duty, of course, that's what's that Emerson said? Someone else always knows your duty better than you do. Emerson came to my aid again, as he has so many times, and I remembered that phrase. Someone else always knows your duty better than you do. But I was in torture. I was in torment. Because maybe that's right. Maybe that's what Baba was. What shall I do? And I was never one to write Baba. Baba, tell me. Don't ask him any questions, because whatever he tells you, then you have to do that. I was always nervous about that. At least if you make up your own mind, I did it, right? But the other way, you're stuck. So I did not write to him or cable him or anything. But I was distraught, and I couldn't sleep, and have terrible. And I sat down. This was like 2 nights before with all these problems. And I don't know what. I have to go, and I'm selfish. I want to go. Which is it? And as I sat there, suddenly again, and when you're in real distress, Baba gives you the answer, I think. Now, if it comes to me in pictures, I may have a mind that images things, but he puts it in your subconscious very clearly, whether you see it or not. I happen to see these things. There is an old roll-top desk, a swivel chair, somebody sitting facing the desk like this. Chair swivels around like this. Baba's in the chair. Come, I'm waiting for you. I went. I still had problems. I couldn't get to the airport. Harold would not drive me. And so Ruth Rosen says, I'll get my husband to do it. You know, he wouldn't do it for her, but halfway to the airport, she tells him, oh, she's not leaving from New York, she's leaving from New York. He stops the car. I thought I wasn't going to get there even then. But finally, I got there. Okay, I went to India. It was every step of the way was torture. There was nobody on the plane. I think there were about 4 people on the plane. The plane was freezing cold. It was impossible. It was absolutely impossible on the plane. It was like being on an ice plane. There was nobody on an Air India plane. People weren't on. Of course, we were on a kind of plane that couldn't go very far. You just about made it to England. From England, you got off, then you had to go to Paris. Then when you got off in Paris, you had to go to Geneva. You had to get off in Geneva. Then you had to go to Rome. You had to get off in Rome. Then we went to Cairo. And at night, I won't get into that. It was a wild experience. And then from Cairo, you go to Lebanon, to Beirut. And then when you get to Beirut, you go. And it was an enormous amount of time. Okay. When I got to the station over there, no, I got to, what do you call that place where you got to pass through customs and all that stuff, right? I had no luggage. So everybody who else who was on the plane went through and got on the bus, and I was standing there, customs all alone. And finally they said, okay, last call for Hong Kong. The plane's taken off for Hong Kong with my luggage. So somehow or other, they raced out and got the luggage. They brought it in, right? Now, there were 6 custom guys and nobody to look at but me. So they opened my luggage. I never could get it back in. You know how you go to India? You stuff it, you stick it, take it out. And the thing is, they weren't looking at it at all, but they were, this is early stuff. See, it's not like this now, right? And they look at they're pulling it all out. They look at me. Oh, you American. And then I'm looking, but they're yanking all the stuff all over the place. Can't get it back. The bus is gone. I'm all alone in this strange world. Well, what I'm saying is, it was hard, very hard to get there in all of this stuff. Okay, now where am I? All the things that Baba said. I was told Baba had called the women in, right? And the darshan did not begin until Thursday morning, but late on Wednesday he called the women in, and he said, "Where is Virginia?" So don't ever think he doesn't know where you are, what you do. I mean, he didn't get a list, and check it off. He could tell and assured that. Now I suppose what he was doing maybe was protecting me, that I was going to get there in this. All right, let me see, what is it? Well, everything he said there, he said, it's all beyond your comprehension. My consciousness is as much above yours as yours is above the ants. And I tried to think about that, right? And if I say to the ants, now listen, I'm going to, I gotta go shopping, and I gotta go to work, I gotta get the How can the ant? All right, I'm trying to rush this now, right? Just sit near me, love me, right? In the morning, well, I'd have the Westerners would sit with Baba inside Guru Prasad, which isn't there anymore, right? In this reception room. And we sat with him like Westerners, and he said, "You Easterners would not understand this. I am with you like just ordinary people, right? I come down to your level, I be with you." And people would crawl all over him, the kids would sit on his lap, and we'd lean on his back and kiss him and pull on him, and it was impossible. Then, in the afternoon, this huge meeting. 5,000 people couldn't get near him, right? And it was the Easterners. And we would sit in the front rows, right? Men on one side, women on the other, of course, right? Although once Baba made us change places. We were sitting on this side, the women, men over here. One day he says, "I want you to switch and sit on the other side." Not mix, of course, but switch. Okay, all of these things must have had something. There's so much, I'm trying to see what I can call out here now. 2 minutes, how much?
Virginia, don't rush it. I don't think any of us want you to stop.
Well, we have. Well, I know it's wonderful, but I know you can't do this. Just let me see how much I can. Let me look at this for a minute. Just let me look in here for a minute. I know. I was the first killer when we got there, and I tell you, everybody had such a time getting there. Right? It was so hard, and so this is what Baba says. The first thing knocked us over. It is because of my love that you are here. I have drawn you to me, and if I did not love you, you would not come to me. It is not your love that has brought you. It is my love that has drawn you to me. Well, see, this is a hell of a thing after all we went through it together. I mean, what is it, Bob? Baba does the love and we do the work, or something like that. I don't know, but he made it very clear, and because everyone's going, oh God, I got here, and he said, it's nothing. I drew you here. You had nothing to do with it, right? And that seemed very important, right? And let's see. Another thing that was so striking was that he would have us really caressing him, mauling him, you might say, in the morning hours, 9 to 11:30, something like that. And in the afternoon, right, these thousands and thousands of people, not just the ones who were in the tent, the 5,000 in the tent, right, but the thousands who were streaming from outside, constantly breaking down the bamboo fences and stuff, right, coming, and they would pass before him for darshan. And they would be going so fast, you could hardly see them. You see them in some of the films. So fast, right? And like, there was no time for them to kiss Baba or grab him or anything. They were just, the mandali would like sort of duck them. They were going like this, duck them at Baba's feet. And they went so fast. And he was so wonderful to the Westerners. I mean, we must be going to have to do an awful lot of stuff, right? He was setting us up, right? And one day, he said he selected this time because there was never any rain. No sooner finished saying that, down comes the rain. Like we're sitting outside in the afternoon. Everyone was getting soaked, right? They put up what they call pondos. It's just a sheet of cloth. It's supposed to keep out the sun. I guess it certainly wasn't supposed to keep out the rain. It didn't even keep out the sun because the Indian colors are so bright. There's none of these colors. Bright colors, red, orange, made the sun brighter, it seemed to me. Anyway, it rained so hard. And so Baba said that the women could come up on the stage and go backstage where the Eastern women who were never present, this is 62, Eastern women were never present, could go backstage and get some dry clothes. I don't say they didn't know what was going on. It's all curtains, They're all, but you never could see them. And many people, in fact, most people. Adele, did you go backstage and get clean clothes, dry clothes?
No, because I considered myself a native of India.
Oh. Well, Leatrice, is she here? Did you go back? Sure did. Okay. Well, I did. I just sat there and I let it rain, right? And after all, I didn't come to wear clean, dry clothes. I came there to be with Baba, and Baba was here, right? And then later, Baba said, it shouldn't have rained, but it may rain again tomorrow, right? And stay in your seat. Even though he had said, go backstage and get them, he said, stay in your seat. I couldn't do that one. I stayed in my seat. Stay in your seat. No matter what happens, stay here with me. So I felt flattered. I can't describe all of this stuff. Right? He emphasized clearly. I've got about 14 pages, but this is outline. One of the things he emphasized is that the only on this earth can human involution be completed. Must be on this earth. There are millions of planets. People are evolved in other conditions and all that, but only here. This is the only place. We're also at such a point. We're so lucky, right? And the only thing we can do is hang on to his Taman, right? I forgot to mention this the other night when we were in Delmonico, right? What we did is we had little slips of paper. It's, a little tiny slip of paper, each one like this. And you wrote your name on it. And then we had a kite. And the tail of the kite, each one His name got pinned across the tail, you know. And Baba said, wherever I am the kite, wherever I go, you are with me. Hang on to my tail. And I think we understood that better than, holding on to a skirt. Then wherever I am, you are. We are his children. He emphasized that over and over again. Don't worry. Be happy. Be 100% honest, right? Work during the day. Work. Do your best. But then, at night, forget it. Don't torture yourself. Don't have remorse or anything. Forget it all. Relax and go to sleep and start new the next day. I thought that was important. Because people say, I can't sleep. I was thinking this. Forget it all. Go to sleep. Forget it all. Right? He saw all the groups. He said to the New York group, which we were going with, right? Do you know that I am there with you at all your meetings? Right? And then he said the real darshan is not to come up. We would go up and when he had time after the Easterners filed time, we would go up. The real darshan is not to come up on the stage, bow down to me and touch me, right? The real darshan, right, is to love me. And when you do, the work will go right. And he emphasizes, we will know, not smoothly, but right. He listened to Kawalis every day, and Baba himself would translate some of them. And they were all about the pangs of separation, the desire for love, right? The lover's complaint. And Baba said, to love is no joke. In one, he said his favorite one, right? When the divine wine cellar opens his shop, all the cups will be filled. And you all here, right, are the cups. Right? They will be filled, and then you can drink to your heart's content. One morning he got up 6 o'clock. This was the last night. Got up 6 o'clock, and from 6 to 9, he saw the people outside. There were so many who couldn't get in and who were standing outside for his darshan. And people came from so far away, and mothers. One baby on this arm, lugging this one, couple kids tagging behind. Nobody was alone. I mean, and they had come for a couple days' journey, and how they got there, I can't imagine. But Baba, since they couldn't get in anything, Baba came 6 o'clock in the morning and saw them for 3 hours. Then he was going to begin the day's program. And he came to us at 9 o'clock, as he did in the morning. And he looked so exhausted, so tired. And he said to us, right, I'm exhausted, but you will help me. And that one of the works of the West, right, was to give him the energy to do his work. And he sat with us. And we fooled around and loved him a little and patted him and this and that. And by the time it was 11:30, 12 o'clock, and he had to go to this big afternoon service program, he looked much, much better. And Mani says he is different now. You have given him, he needs the Western energy to do his work. I think I talked a little about that yesterday. Right? One cute thing then, we're sitting, and this is in the morning, and he says, now, don't go north. Don't go to the Taj and so forth, right? The communists will come there and this and that. And so he said, very soon. And everybody looked seriously, God, what are we going to do with China? The communists are going to do it, they're taking over India. And Baba said then, which side shall I be on? I am in them as well as in you. I mean, all these cute little touches, I think, right? You got this singer, Pat Warden, right? Whom Baba said he sang for Khrushchev at that time, and Khrushchev thought he had such a beautiful voice. He didn't believe it could really be his voice. And he made him open his mouth and look down his throat so he could see if he had some hidden instrument. Bobby thought he got a kick out of that. And then he says, when it was so hot, he says, you have no idea, he says, right, how hot it is inside the sun. You think it's hot here. It's inside the sun. It is so hot, right? But it's not as hot as God's love. And then he always, all of these so cute little Timothy. Then he says, right, here I let you use fans, but not God up there. They had given out fans to everyone, right? And everybody was I am compassionate Father. I let you use fans here, but not when you're inside God's love like that. Important event apparently was the fact that the Mandali had not been allowed to bow down to him for 22 years. And this was part of it, right? And we Westerners got to bow down, to caress him and fondle him all morning. And in the afternoon, we mostly, except for one time I think, came by and could take darshan at the end, right? But the Easterners were just ripped by. I mean, they were just dunked on his feet. Like, and we had this wonderful, wonderful advantage, right? Well, let's see. Some of this is written. A reporter came and asked him who would be victorious, and Baba said, India will be victorious because I am the Christ and I have incarnated in India. The next morning paper said, right, prophet says India will win the war. Cut it off. Okay. Oh, yes. Must get this one more thing, okay? Then Baba said, you must say goodbye to the girls. I mean, only to the women. And for me, for some reason, it was not only goodbye, but it was hello to Meera. I, for some reason, had not met Meera. Well, I came so late. Myrtle Beach, I had missed her, and so forth. Right? And so, Rano came, Meera wants to meet you, you know. And, you know, they do so much gossiping over there. I mean, they know all about everybody, even though people haven't seen and all this. and so Rana brought me in toward Meera, and I was excited. And she brought me. When I got to Meera, I swear, I felt, and I was absolutely unprepared for this, I felt the same thing I felt when I met Baba initially. I went out. I was on the floor, on my face. I didn't plan it. I didn't have anything to do with it. But the same thing happened. I went out. I can't say I have a great connection with Meera. It was a terrifying experience. And she said, wait, I wanted to get you something. And she got me this. She took it from her sari, gave me this pin. Should I pass this one around? And this pin I've kept. And when Ann came to visit me later, she said, you're not wearing this pin. I said, no, I'm not wearing it. She says, you should wear it. So I wore it to class. And I tell you, it was the funniest thing. I always got along very well with the students. And when I had this pin on, all the men suddenly started to take issue with everything they'd never done before. And it was in the middle of the semester. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I took the pin off. I left it home. Everything was fine. So be careful what you wear. Oh, yes. This one is... I won't tell all the personal stuff, how hard it was to get back. It was almost more impossible than going. But this one, say goodbye to Baba. You will never see me again. This was heavy. You'll never see. So come, each one individually, embrace me, say goodbye. You will never see me again. Well, what are you going to do? You want to grab everything out of him that you can to take with you. You're not going to get it again. And when it came my turn, and I grabbed him. Oh, I had somehow, I don't know, maybe he was seated. No, he was standing up. And I was down a little bit, maybe kneeling, I remember. And I suddenly became conscious that my head was against him, against his big fat belly. Was hitting his belly, like that. So that wasn't what I wanted, his belly. I wanted to get all this glory, God, all this stuff. I wanted to get out of him. But I didn't get anything. All I got was your head's against his belly. And then I understood him. I don't know if I heard the words, but it was very clear in meaning, right? I am not this body. And I dropped my hands, and I got up, and I walked away. And I wasn't crying anymore. Baba said then, don't leave me. Take me with you. I am not this body. And it occurs to me it was a full circle. Because the first time I didn't see him, there was no body. And when I left him, there was no body. Take me with him. It's not in